Okay, it's an informal chat tonight anyway, but I didn't actually hit record straight away with Alex. Well, not intentionally. We were chatting sort of from about 10 to 1 to 1 o'clock, and the call started at 1. So I didn't technically feel it was right to start, recording. And we just, silly, like we got into a really, really good discussion about mold before the call started, because it was just an informal, chat, and then people started entering the chat room, for want of a better word. And it was just such an interesting, because I haven't had a chance to listen to her. I've got all these problems with my podcast on my phone, and I haven't had a chance to listen to her mold ones, where she talks a lot about her experience. If anyone hasn't seen her chat or listened to the podcast, she was completely struck down with chronic inflammatory, response syndrome? I think that's what it stands for, CIRS, where it's just a series of seemingly unrelated issues that sort of descend upon you. And she actually had surgery on her sort of weeping eye, her tear duct, and tried to resolve all the other problems individually with different practitioners, and realised eventually that it was the mold causing absolutely everything. So we had this really interesting chat. And then I had to just sort of stop her and say, okay, we'll start recording. We didn't really come back to it for the rest of the call. And it's just so interesting. I was never interested in mold. I know I've probably spoken about it in the program as well. It's such a boring topic, really. If it doesn't affect you, you think, oh yeah, whatever. EMF's probably more scary to most people. But when you start getting into it, and I just put a post on my page tonight, it is a ticking time bomb because there's so many conditions we don't know might be connected to mold. And I can't remember why I got on that topic. I think I was just trying to say that that's why I need to start the video recording, even though it feels like I just wanted to chat to you before we started recording. Anyway, so I haven't actually looked at anything. I don't really have mold freaks me out, but my real estate agent thinks I'm complaining about nothing. That's the thing. It's not recognised at all. And I think it will be. I think there's enough, like just hearing what Alex went through. And she's just one person. There's people with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, who have serious, their lives are thrown into turmoil and disarray. She says it costs her tens of thousands of dollars to throw things away, move house, wash everything, go to practitioners for years and years and years. And I have quite a few friends that have serious chronic fatigue, and that is definitely, they don't know that that's the root cause of their issue, but it's certainly an issue in there. Yes, thank you for recommending that group. Toxic Mold Australia is a huge group that is growing really quickly. I think people are starting to wake up that a lot of their symptoms could be attributed to that. And I think it's something, if you didn't hear the interview, I will say it again, it's something that we tend to think of as, just an annoying, the bathroom's mouldy again, got to clean it, an annoying sort of thing that just hangs out in the house. But if there is mold in your house, that is a sign that the building's sick for whatever reason. It might simply be that you're just not airing out the house enough because people aren't aware that we need to do that. And it is really, we got, I don't know what Ra sorted with Bruce. I knew you meant Bruce, sorry. And then we moved to the east and a mound. I think there's a few typos I cannot. Oh, rheumatoid arthritis. Is that what you're saying with Ra? I thought it was a typo. Rheumatoid arthritis. There we go. I worked it out. Double whammy. It triggers all the symptoms. And that's it. It triggers symptoms in other conditions. So it might not be the mold being the cause. Sometimes it is. Often it is. But other times it's just a trigger with an already overloaded system. And so it's such an interesting topic because I just am not the susceptible type. More like we grew up in the house that we've just moved from. Very mouldy. We're in a valley. They built a wooden house in a valley, and the way they built houses back then was brick all around the bottom, so there's zero airflow under the house. If you go under the house, it's all black mold. And so it's just like the whole place is just mouldy. And there's just nothing that you can do. And that's just a structure. That's like the way it's been built that causes the problem. And the fact that it's in a valley doesn't help. And also wood is just very, like wood and leather and natural fibres and substances actually attract mold. So if you take them out of the room, that makes a really big difference. But yeah, there's other structural damage, water leaks. It can be so many different reasons. And it was because I grew up there, I clearly don't have a huge problem with processing it. But as soon as Jan moved there, with me, he's like the canary in the coal mine, and he clearly has a problem. He has asthma quite badly. And so as soon as he spends 1 minute in one of the rooms that tends to get quite moldy, 1 minute he's wheezing and coughing and eyes watering, and it's that easy for him to tell that there's mold in there. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't smell any mold. It's fine. Let's watch the TV show. Just stop complaining. And so for him, sleeping in a moldy room or with mold on the pillow, anything like that, he just can't sleep, and he's on his puffer all night. And nothing we did, with diet or lifestyle or anything like that, Buteyko breathing helps when, yes, boys are him. I think there is something to it, and it's just maybe genetically. Well, there's several different things. There's like the lack of ability to detoxify, and there's a whole bunch of different, tests that you can run and reasons that some people are affected so much more than others. But I definitely think that it affects on some level everybody, and maybe the symptoms just don't show up as severely. But it's interesting that whenever we clean the house properly, really properly, and they keep changing the cleaning methods every 5 minutes in building biology, but everybody's little niggling symptoms. So I didn't have too many, but everyone's mood improved all of a sudden. And I think mood is a really, really big one. Certainly for Jan. And we worked out, I think really he can't drink coffee. And he thought I was completely nuts, saying, no, but you turn into an ogre when you drink coffee. And he's like, it's not that big a deal. I'm like, no, it is. It's like your personality changes. And obviously there's cross-reactivity with gluten, which he can't handle, but also the molds on the coffee as well. And in that house, it seemed like the coffee made him so much worse in that house. And I think it's tied into mold. So there's just so many layers of, investigation and things like that. So I wanted to mention it. Michaela and Jan work together at the Happy Habitat, and they're doing, this wasn't all leading up to a promo. He just decided to do this tonight. And I put a post on my Facebook page, but if you want a mold, they do free rising damp assessments. If you think you've got rising damp, they do a little interview over the phone, and they do like a whole house health check with that. But they also do EMF and mold consults as well. And they're doing a 10% off special in just for people who book in May. Just a little bit of a plug for them. But yeah, it's a big issue. I know I missed a comment just before. There's a leak in between the building and the veranda, and they won't fix it. It has now spread, and we can't move again at the moment. That's the thing. It's does that include if it grows on kombucha and other? No, that's different. That's okay. That one's all right. Well, no, if mold grows on your kombucha, that's not cool. You want to throw it out. But if you're talking about the mushroom, fungus, yeast thing that grows on there, that's totally okay. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and it's one where I think if you do have mold in the house, you need to learn to, if you can't really remediate and change the root cause of the problem, which if you're renting, sometimes you can't. It's a real battle that you can get into with your landlord. But the solution that they offer, the rising damp solution, if that's what it's called, it's not always caused by rising damp, but it usually is in Sydney. If it's not a leak or something like that, if it's structural and there's paint peeling off the walls, their device, some landlords are really interested in putting that in because it prevents further structural damage, and it works 100% within 6 to 12 months, and all the walls are dry within 12 months without having to cut down walls or put in a new damp course. So it's really interesting. It's such a dry topic if you're not interested, so I won't keep going on about that. But just something to keep an eye out for if you have anyone with anything respiratory, anything sort of neurological, even just mood swings, anything where you feel, that's the telltale sign. And Alex was saying the same thing. If you go on holiday, she dropped a kilo when she was on holidays. Obviously, it should be the other way around because you eat so much on holidays. But if you have symptoms that clear up as soon as you leave the house and you go somewhere else, that's a telltale sign that there's sick building syndrome. It might be any number of things. Yes, I'll put a link to his website. It's called thehappyhabitat.com.au, I think is the link, but I'll put it in the comments in the video once I post it in the group. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the farm day. For those of you who are local, I won't go too much on about it. We're going to do citrus preservation and harvesting. There's so much citrus and last year I felt so just disheartened because we moved in at the end of July or beginning of July, and then moved out and then moved back in again. And there was so many lemons and so many lemonades and so many oranges. We ate all the mandarins. That was very, very easy, and we're already getting through them now. They're the best mandarins. We've had clementines that have come and gone already, but the what's the main brand that they sell in Imperial. So they're really easy to peel. I know they've been probably, you know, cultivated for, you know, modern humans, but they're so sweet and delicious. But we've got all this citrus, and I thought last winter we had to move the fruit because it was sort of all rotting in the orchard. So we pick up boxes of the fruit that had fallen and just literally put it into the bush just to clear it away. So there wasn't too much mold and fungus in the orchard. And it was just disheartening. And so this year I'm determined to get through it all one way or the other. So that's on the 16th of, I think it's the 15th of July. I think it's a Sunday. I think that's what it is. I should have checked that before the call. And we're going to have someone teaching. I don't think I'll do it. I think I'll get Gillian or Jane or somebody else to teach the little workshop. And because I was running around like a headless chook last time, and I don't think I'll be capable of doing everything. So that'll be really fun. So kids and everyone, welcome. That's where I'm flying in. Oh yes, you're coming. I forgot. That's very exciting, Belinda. That's good. And there were questions. I wanted to talk a little bit. It's just some cool things that I've been putting together. I actually have not emailed. There's a handful of people from What to Eat that have booked in through the link for the 60 Plants e-course. And I need to email. If you're watching, I haven't actually emailed you. I think ALA was one of them. I'm pushing the date back once again because I want to. I moved it to after the gut health event for the fundraising events for the coal mine, which is on the 27th. And I thought, we'll just do it the week after that. It's just too crazy because we won't be able to market the e-course in the same. I just want to focus on marketing the coal mine event and get all the people into that one so that we can raise funds and awareness. And so I'm moving it. I think it's the 7th of June that's starting on the Wednesday, whatever the Wednesday is. But we've been writing this ebook, and I'd finished all the copy for the theory part of the course. And there's just so much, you know, when you create new products, well, you may not, but if you do an assignment even for uni or something, and you have to research stuff and you get distracted, well, I don't know if anyone gets distracted as I do. I start opening things and then I link to something else, and it's just very, very hard to create products because I just love learning. And then you're like, wow, this is fascinating. Look at this link and look at this study. And by the time the day's finished, it's like, well, I learnt loads, but I didn't actually get anything down on paper for the assignment or for the ebook. But one of the things I learned when we were talking about, for anyone who missed the whole point of this e-course, is to expand our diversity. And I've changed it from really being predominantly about fibre. That's one aspect. But I wanted to make it just about getting people out of their comfort zone, appreciating exotic produce, because that's just fun. You don't do that just for fibre. You do that to be, I think the main purpose of it is to really get comfortable, confident to go to the shops and go, oh, that looks interesting and cool. I'm going to grab that and put it in my basket and make something with it, and feel confident in trying new things and then going, it's not that hard, and then let's try something else. And then getting to the point where you might have tried all the, produce that's local to you and you're a bit of a whiz. Then it doesn't matter what you buy. If you've got a formula for cooking beans, for example, it doesn't matter what type of bean you get. You can use that formula to cook it. And therefore it gives you a little bit more confidence shopping and eating seasonally. You don't go, oh, I've never cooked that variety or that food before. You could go, oh, I'll whack that in my slow cook. It should work. You get more confident and you take more risks. And it means, when you first start getting a veggie box delivered, that sort of thing throws you. When you first start getting a seasonal box, you go, oh, there's all these apples and greens or whatever it is. And you think, oh, this is not my normal formula. Because if you're used to shopping at the farmers markets for the things that you like, you cook what you always cook. That's just what most people do. Not everybody, but most people get into their routine with what they always cook. And therefore, it's hard to sort of get out of your comfort zone and go, right, we're going to cook some new recipes this week. That can overwhelm people. So it's all about expanding your repertoire to give you the confidence to be able to cook anything. Wherever you go in the world, you can cook whatever's there because you've got all those formulas to be able to do that. So, and also getting into the habit of trying new things, because it can also be just that, oh, I don't know if I would be good enough to do that pseudo grain, that buckwheat or whatever it is. And once you've done millet and buckwheat and amaranth and teff, you're like, oh, I can do anything now. It's not that hard, and it becomes a new routine to actually be a bit more courageous in getting out of your comfort zone. So that's what it's about now, not just about fiber, but about diversity. And one of the things, some of the figures that we looked up, remember I said on the last call I was talking about this, I was looking up figures, and I didn't actually get around to recording them, but some of the figures, if you look around the world at different tribes, so modern hunter-gatherer tribes, some of them, I'll just read through. So we consume on average 30 varieties a year. And you think, oh, well, I counted mine last week and it's definitely more than 30. It's about 40. But what many of us don't realize is that a lot of our modern cultivated varieties are actually the same species. So cauliflower and kale and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and collard greens and cauliflower, they're all the same species. That's all the same plant. So variations, heavily cultivated into things that we enjoy. So that's one plant. Well, it's not really, it's not, but it's like that doesn't count as variety technically. So in terms of different species of plants, we consume 30 in a year, and then all the other tribes, 119, 85 plus, 168, 100, and we're 30. So it's dismal compared to the traditional cultures who are still living the way that we, technically should be living in some form or another. And I can never pronounce it. I think that you say the Kalahari Bushmen from the Gods Must Be Crazy movie. They consume 54 types of animal foods. I thought that was absolutely astounding. And that's not something we think about. It was, it's called 60 Plants, 10 Days. But I was like, but variety, or we're going to talk about variety across the board. So, and mushrooms aren't technically a plant, but they will be counting for the challenge as well. And nor are seaweeds. They're not technically plants, most of them are algae. So I used to love that movie too. I think we were shown I can remember watching it still in year 1. I remember watching that. It must have been the original, not the number 2 version, learning about Africa with that movie. So cute. So I just thought it was interesting, even if you're not planning to do the challenge, it's to think about how many, we just, pork, lamb, beef, chicken, duck, okay, 5, the eggs, same animal pretty much. And it's just, we just like 54 animals. So I thought that was interesting. And that's not including insects. And that's also all of those numbers that I just mentioned before are not including medicinal plants or anything that they use medicinally. So it's just foods that they eat for sustenance. So really, really impressive, I thought, and I'm really excited to start that one, because it's just going to be it's going to be lots of videos. So I just like talking, and I was getting a bit I always get a little bit upset that the program's finishing, and particularly that we won't be doing it for another 2 years. And when we do it, I'm probably going to have a baby. So that's sort of weird and exciting. Everything just seems to be moving quite quickly, but it's 2 years away. So for anyone who didn't catch the first video, what I've decided to do, I wasn't going to do this initially, and then I just think it's better. Everyone who does that particular course, the What to Eat, people all get it for $19 for this round only, not because just for this one. But once you've done this one, you can do all of them. And so I'm going to have it be a lifetime access. Once you've done it, you can just keep coming back, and like What to Eat is basically if you get lifetime access. So regular price is $39, you guys get it for $19, and I'll be doing it probably twice a year if it goes well, or maybe just once a year. I'll see. I'm not going to make any promises there, but so that's what it will be. So I'll put a link. I think my husband's created a secret page for What to Eat. People don't go sharing it with everybody else, but I think he's done that. So I'll put a link to that. And I will put the correct date in case I didn't say that. I think it's the 6th or 7th of June. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say, but I know that there were questions. You can ask questions now if you want. There were questions about, let me just see. I made a really good baked pudding tonight. I'm just shutting all my windows down so I can see the Facebook thread with the questions from, I can't remember, was it Kelly? I think so. Because I had rhubarb and apple sitting there, and I just made like a coconut cream custard with tons of eggs around it, and then just baked it in the oven. And it was so good. And I never write recipes down. I'm starting my New Year's resolution is to write stuff down because I create wonderful things. I'm like, oh, I'm so awesome. And people say, where's the recipe? I'm like, didn't write. It's not that easy if you're a very spontaneous cook. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Okay, so Catherine had said something about, let me just shrink this window so that I don't keep losing the screen. Sorry, what is it? Oh gosh. Sorry, there we go. That's better. Okay, yes, holistic dentist. So yeah, preconception, definitely the most important. Do I do live workshops outside of Sydney? Well, I'm planning live workshops. Everything just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back because I keep planning on I just start doing activist stuff and then all my actual plans get pushed to the side, but it's been very rewarding, all the coal mine. But yeah, I am planning workshops for the kitchen. And that's the other thing. I was so planning to do live videos from my kitchen. Like if you go back, probably watch the first video that I did for this program, like I'm going to be doing live videos from my kitchen, and it's still not done, but it's because we're so busy with everything else. But I will, as soon as the program finishes, which this is technically the end, I think we're sending out an email on Wednesday or Thursday with all the documents and things like that and a survey. But I will be going back into the regular What to Eat group and I will start doing videos because there's so many things that I've wanted to share and I think, oh, just wait till the kitchen's done, just wait till this is done. My savoury custard recipe, which is just the best. I just think I love recipes that are really, really simple, and then they're so simple that you do them. And that was pretty much just roughly 3 eggs, a cup of broth, a dollop of meat, white meat. So see, I haven't got measurements yet. And like sort of whisk it all together and then either bake it or cook it in ramekins in boiling water. And it just sets, and it's like chawanmushi, the Japanese, it basically tastes and feels like silken tofu without the disgusting soy taste. And it's just so it's delicate and soft and just like perfect silken tofu, that texture, but savory and salty. And it's just amazing. And I love it. So I need to get that up on the blog. And I was going to do a video to show you that. And I was also going to do a video on the tiramisu because that's it's not complex, but it's nice to see it. So I'll be doing all those videos in the other group soon. But preconception nutrition, yes, it's a big one, really, and I'll get Shalani, I know you've probably posted it already this round, Shalani, to post the graph that shows basically you have the biggest impact, you have the biggest ability to make a change to your children. Yeah, I'll get both of the sweet and savoury versions up into the blog. They're both, I'm just into baked custard because they're so easy. Just whack it in and then you've got this massive tray. Like it's just no prep. It's so easy. So yes, I'll get both the recipes, I promise, soon. But yes, you've got more. Preconception is more valuable and more powerful than pregnancy nutrition, which is more powerful and valuable than infant, than young, what do you call it, like early childhood, and then the rest of your life. And so you can make a difference at any age, but the small changes will have a profound impact in if you nurture your body in the preconception phase. If you put all your attention there, you could, I'm not saying you should forget about the rest, but you could almost just relax in the rest of it. And that's the case. If you did everything in preconception and pregnancy, you can chill out for the rest of your journey and know that you've given them a really good start. And yes, if you've missed the preconception pregnancy boat with dentistry, can you rectify things? I think you can. I think it's just, it takes longer and it's not as easy as, just eating well for 3 to 6 months. Well, it should be longer than that. But if you really, really ate really nutrient-dense diets and get the gut in order, and that's the thing, it's not about diet. It's like diet, as we talked about in week 1, is just tiny little insignificant piece compared to everything else. So if you're eating perfectly, and I think I talk about this in my interview with Alex for her preconception course, you can be eating everything perfectly and stressed out of your brain. That stress is draining your nutrients. And so there's no point, well, there is. contradicted everything I've said so far. You can always do something. That's it. It's just that you can do so much more at that time. And then it's just a case of, if you know you haven't done that, and this is where I get really upset with people when there's information that gets posted about motherhood or birth or choices that we can make as women and families, that it's like you're shaming women who haven't done that. It's like, no, we're not. We're providing information. And if the information makes you feel like crap because you didn't know it then, which happens to everybody, and things that I've done are like, oh, if I had have known that. Everyone feels like that. No one, because you never stop learning. So it's not this process of like, cool, I know everything now I can make a healthy baby. It's a case of you take those facts, you take the knowledge of, yep, didn't know a cesarean, you know, they might have a slightly different gut profile, and if we didn't get to breastfeed, same thing. Then you don't go, oh, I'm a terrible mother. You know, you what you do is you say, okay, that child probably needs a bit of extra support. That child probably needs a bit more of a focus on the fat-soluble vitamins and the minerals in early childhood, because I was a bit malnourished preconception and pregnancy because I didn't know any better at that point. I was stressed out of my mind when I was actually creating the What to Eat program at that point, about to launch the first online version, if anyone remembers, and really convincing myself I was fine, because I've heard everybody else work to the end of their pregnancy. But when I am overworked, I get really stressed and think that I can manage everything. C-section baby. So no, let me finish one thing first. So I was really stressed. He turned breech, which is generally due to stress, and I knew it was due to stress with him, and turned back shortly after I removed the stress out of my life, which was postponing the program, giving myself permission to just put it all on hold, and everyone was really lovely about it. And so stress is depleting all the beautiful foods I was eating and the liver and everything else. If your mind is going a million miles an hour, that's depleting things. So honestly, I think, in hindsight, I think a crappy diet and a really happy, relaxed pregnancy with lots of family around you and, laughter and joy and no stress, I actually think if I had the choice, I would choose that for my baby rather than a perfect diet. So it's not, you don't need to know everything at any given point in time. It's just about doing the best. So C-section babies, they have, and generally if you have your time, if you have another baby and you have to go down that path, I think Shilani's saying yes to like joy over food. And I think the more you learn, the more you realize how your mind has just the same effect as food does on your biochemistry, or just enough, the same amount of power as food can have. I think it's big. I think it's 60-40 personally after everything that I've studied. So, and I wasn't, I knew I didn't know all the food stuff, but, so anyway, C-section babies. So they are exposed to the bacteria in the hospital, which is obviously slightly different to what it would be in nature or your home, because there's lots of, precautions that they have to take. So it's quite sterile. And then so it's nothing to worry about, because I think the research is showing that it's not just that experience at birth. It's also breastfeeding. So those babies, you would want to really try your best to breastfeed, and it's not that easy, and not everyone can get there and finish it and do all that, but you would try your best to do that for as long as you could, if you could. And obviously sometimes that's interfered with because of the C-section, so that's a bit of a shame. Sometimes it just works out that way if there's any problems around the birth. I would love to do I think I don't have the guts to do Facebook Lives in public on, pregnancy and conception and natural birth and home birth and things like that. But I would really love to, I've always wanted to create a product called Nutrition for Natural Birth, and do not podcasts, but into like talks on eating for a good labor and a good birth, because it's something I'm really passionate about. I was very lucky. I know it's luck and nutrition and mental state, and I did a lot of mentally training to let go of my fears around birth. But I think I agree. I think it's missing. So I'm jumping from topic to topic, and I'm so sorry if I'm boring all the people who are not interested at all in kids. But yeah, C-section babies have shown, and same with formula-fed babies to a certain degree. And this, again, don't beat yourself up. That's just what it is. You did what you did. And you just then go, okay, so they probably need some help with gut stuff in their early childhood. And when they're young, you've still got plenty of opportunity to do that with diet and with keeping the stress out of their environment, not sort of overscheduling and rushing them around, and just having a really nice, slow childhood has its benefits, I believe. I think that's a really big one for children. They're so sensitive, and I think we forget how busy our lives are. You know, we've sort of adapted to this madness. And so I think, you know, silence in the house, no radios or TVs blaring, really slowing childhood down so they can just, do you remember what our childhoods were like? They were not like they are today. Like, we just had time and space, and we were bored shitless sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, we were just so, oh, Mum, I'm bored. There was nothing to fill our childhoods up with the noise and the dopamine, you know, surges like the children are today. So I think that's a really big thing, is to focus on their diet as they're young. If you suspect any sort of gut issues, if there's anything, allergies, eczema, asthma, poor appetite, cravings, sugar cravings, or other cravings, although kids do definitely need sugar in all its, you know, natural forms, then you would probably look at doing a little bit of testing, just a little bit, to see the balance of the bacteria. And certainly if there's more severe, if there's any sort of behavioural stuff, I think it's worth testing, because then it shows you like, okay. And just like the uBiome or whatever tests that are not that expensive, you don't need to do the full $400 test. There's ones for, you know, $100 that you can do that show you the balance of the bacteria, what, you know, what's normal, what's not, and then you can start to rectify that. It might be less fat is needed and a little bit more fibre in the diet. Probably that's the case with us, because we eat a lot of fat in the house. And since our veggie garden sort of dwindled, we don't probably have quite enough fibre. Which is why I'm doing a 60 Plants 10 Days course, because I'm keen to get excited about it again. Oh, uBiome. I'll send a link to that if someone reminds me. I'll put a link up to that. So, yeah, I think I don't know how did we get onto that topic? I have no idea. Let me scroll through the questions. What were we talking about? Somebody complimented me on my clock. Yes, that's a bit of a family. We found it in the shed, actually. No one was looking after it, so we stole it out of the shed. Have no idea how he got onto that. But I'm more than happy to talk about birth and babies till the cows come home. So we can easily do another call on that in the Watch Week group. I think I'm becoming a little bit of a birth activist now that I know, if anyone didn't see the post, that home birth could be off the cards for everybody as early as next year. So whether you're a fan of home birth or not, when you start to read all the literature and the books that sort of compile the literature for you, you realise that, yeah, it's statistically actually safer in terms of outcomes, and satisfaction rates are much higher with home birth and midwives' continuity of care. So I believe personally, I've got friends who would never birth at home, and I would never encourage them. Well, I'd encourage them to look into it personally, because there's a lot of stuff I didn't know until I started researching, and I was like, wow, I'm glad I made this decision. But there are people who feel very, very comfortable in the hands of doctors and hospitals, and I know for a fact that I do not feel safe or comfortable in that system, because I do not like being a number. And once you become aware of the policies, that you don't have a choice in certain circumstances, that you don't have to give consent. That's my sort of worst nightmare, is having stuff done to me that I didn't give, permission for. So anyway, I won't go ranting on about that, but I think that no matter where we are with every issue, I hope for the most part everyone's in agreement that there should be a little bit of choice of the individual, if it's not affecting anybody else. And especially if you get outside of Australia and you get outside of America, America has one of the worst the worst maternal mortality rate in the developed world. And that's the system that we're choosing to follow, which doesn't make any sense to me. But if you go to Europe, where it's like the done thing to birth at home, it's totally safe. It's absolutely safe. And what we need to be more aware of is preconception nutrition, training mothers to have more faith in their bodies, because when you birth without fear, I did a lot of training to let go of fear. Like women in Africa, they're not fearful of birth. It takes half an hour. They just pop them out and there's no fear there. The fear, I love talking, seriously, one more minute and then I won't talk about this anymore, but sphincter law, if you look up Ina May's books, you can't, if you any sphincter in the body, just like when you're having sex, you can't really have an orgasm if you're tensing up and worrying about, will the doctor come in? Are they going to shine a light? Are they going to, you just wouldn't be able to do that. You can't really birth optimally, really, unless you're completely comfortable and relaxed, which is why it's so important for women to be in a state where they feel respected, they feel loved, the lights are dim, they're feeling wonderful, exactly the same setup as you would have, you know, when you're having sex with your partner. So, but yeah, and some people feel much safer in a hospital. So that is, you know, and it's just about, is the woman respected? And 1 in 4 women in a hospital experience birth trauma. And it's always at 1 in 10 and 1 in 4 experience. I read the stats today somewhere. Anyway, it's not good. The results are not good. And it's not necessarily that they're physically assaulted or traumatized or something done against their will. It could be past traumas that are that sort of re-emerge in a situation where they feel powerless to do something with their own body, and they have no power. And that memories from the past just come in that very intense time. And then they can't recover from that, because that's obviously a snapshot in time that you'll never, ever, ever forget. You can't forget that, you know, series of hours, because you're so alert and your senses are so heightened. So anyway, I find myself becoming a bit of an activist for home birth, because I didn't realise things were as dismal as they are. So any wisdom on bedwetting? Bedwetting can be, it depends on the age, but I think it can be a parasite issue. I don't know. I also think that, and there's a discussion about this somewhere in one of the groups I'm in the other day, that some children can be late to produce the hormone from nappies to 7. Yeah, well, I've got a couple of friends who have the same thing, like are still in nappies at 6 or 7 and at night time, and they're fine during the day, but they're suggesting that it may be they're late to produce I'm just having a total mental blank on the hormone that, what is it? I'm having a mental blank. Angiotensin. No, I'm having a mental blank. So it can be nothing or it can be something, but I would look into first probably gut health, and up to age 10, I think, for the hormones to kick in is okay. So so I think sometimes it might be normal, and then if there's other symptoms, just like Google symptoms of parasite infection and just see if that might be, there's other symptoms like teeth grinding and that sort of thing, and maybe weight loss and other symptoms like that. So have a look into that. I gave birth in hospital, but was all controlled by the midwives, never seen a doctor. Midwives are amazing. And that's the thing. If you have, especially in a birthing centre as a happy medium, you're surrounded by midwives and transferred if you need to. Yes, you can get tested for parasites. Yes, there's a stool test, several stool tests. I think you can get them if you go to your doctor and say something like, oh, we didn't tap water on diarrhea, we need a test. I think it's free, actually. You can just get it from a normal GP. Pretty sure that does up to 10 parasites as far as I know. What was I just talking about? Yes, I think some women are really lucky in the hospital system, and there's no hospital births with midwives, and that's the thing. I think it's that level of respect. I don't know. It's hard to generalize because some doctors are absolutely amazing, but on the whole, I think there's a different level of training, and they're taught to be a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, but midwives are there to really be with women. And we did our training with, thank you, PCR test. That's it. If it's minimal intervention and they're happy with that and they're okay, it's just if you get into a situation and you can't sometimes predict who you're going to get with birth in a hospital, that if you don't gel with the person, then you become a number in the system. And that's traumatizing in that state of mind when you're so sensitive to everything. So yes, preconception in terms of the jawline, to go back to your question, Catherine, is that how we got there? That's how we got there. Talking about that is predominantly the fat-soluble vitamins and minerals as well. Well, actually all nutrients, but K2 is a big one. They've shown that when you don't have, what is it? What's the medication? I'm having a total mental blank. Sorry, I'm not on the ball tonight.
what is it, warfarin, where you don't have the amount of K2 floating around that you need, that the babies born to mothers who are on warfarin had sort of depressed noses. They didn't pop out as far. And I actually have someone who does some beauty things for me. I won't say any more than that, but her daughter, she really unhealthy diet. And I never make any comments because it's not really my place, but just got a picture and I was thinking, I wonder how these kids are going to turn out. And her daughter, none of her features have popped out because of such severe malnutrition. Because she's like, I never eat any vegetables. I just binge eat. I need more calories because I'm trying to put weight on all the time. So she does that kind of binge eating junk food to try and put more weight on. And the doctor said, that's great during your pregnancy. You need to put on more weight. So it's just pure, just junk food the whole way through. And I thought, wow, this is going to be an interesting experiment. And very much of the medical mindset. So it was not, it kind of rolls her eyes when I talk about anything natural. So I didn't say anything. But her daughter has a little button nose on her face and has not come out, doesn't have like this big pointy nose. So it's the same with the jawline. If the nutrients are there, the body can make a wide jaw, which I did not have, and I don't really think Archie has a particularly wide jaw. Both myself and my husband's were severely compromised. Like we both have very, very narrow faces. We've both got eye problems, ear problems. So both of our mothers were either stressed or depleted for whatever reason. And so it's just interesting. It's really interesting. Some things I can tell that just the glitch in the genetics has been passed on to Archie. Like there's a few little glitches with Jan's ears, like little weird folds and things. And certainly tongue ties and things that have come all through my family are still there. So there's only a certain level that nutrition can do. And I think for me it's stress. You know, that was my big lesson, to be relaxed, which is that's why we're not doing What to Eat next year, because I'm like, I'm not doing that again. So let me just scroll down. I know Jan said he's going to come back at 7:30, so we've got like a few more minutes left. Chicken broth, beef broth. So yeah, I think in terms of broth, it depends what you're after. There was a good article posted the other night talking about the minerals. I think the longer you cook, the more histamine, glutamate that you have in the broth. If you're not sensitive to those, that's not a problem. But I think you just keep cooking until, I think the flavour also diminishes and it gets a bit more bitter with time. But I definitely think for like beef bones and lamb bones, you'd want to be cooking for at least 6 hours if there's no issue there. I do more like 6 to 8 to 9 hours with those bones and beef bones at least. And then you may want to, there's no real rule around when they're finished. It's just histamine. So if you're sensitive to histamine, it can be a range of histamine, but generally histamine people are the sort of weepy ones that have, sneezes and histamine, any puffiness, hives, that sort of typical histamine reaction. And then other people, it's different. It's just like a bloating and stomach cramps, and really, it depends. It depends how their gut symptoms express themselves. It could be moods, tears. So it really depends on what their regular symptoms are. If any symptoms are exacerbated, you probably assume that you would do it for less time. I've never had anything happen with that because I'm not a histamine person, but Jan's probably has, but he's not aware enough to pay attention to what they are. So that's, yeah, so it just really is, if you keep cooking those bones, there's minerals probably coming into the water. Most of the gelatin is gone, and most of the all the what we call GAGs, or the hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate, that sort of thing, is also gone. So I think gel is a good sign of it's a robust, healthy whole food that you're extracting, and if it's beyond that, it probably doesn't have that much value. Coconut oil. So I love the Royal Green brand. If anyone else wants to post their brands, I can read them out maybe in the thread. But yeah, it's just virgin. Virgin doesn't mean that it has been refined or not. That's to do with the is it the age of, I know I'm having a mental blank after the age of the coconuts, but it can be a virgin, like Royal Green is a virgin oil that has been deodorized through the whatever they use. I think it's like diatomaceous earth or charcoal or clay or something like that, where they actually push it through that to filter it.
but it's still a virgin oil. So it's just been processed slightly differently. And you can use either. It's just a case of high temperature cooking. They're much, obviously there's no flavor, there's no odor. And I really, really love that product because it never feels rancid to me. I definitely think they last longer if they're refined. Kangaroo meat, this is something I really want to look into. If I want to sort of expand what we talk about when it comes to animal products. So kangaroo, emu, emu oil, oh my gosh, I'm just loving it on my skin. And I think I haven't actually looked up the profiles, but it seems to me to be more like a monounsaturated fat rather than poly. And all of the other monounsaturated fats and saturated fats like olive oil and tallow and things like that. I actually love the products that Kitsa, I don't know if she still sells them, but I forgot what they're called, but they were based on tallow. But I don't really love olive oil on my skin. I love it on my body skin, but not my face. And same with coconut oil. It seems to just not go in. But emu oil is like, it's different. And I really, really like it. So I want to look more into that as a supplement, as a food, and the industry itself, how they're raised, you know, how they're, I just want to know more about it. So I'm going to definitely do some research into that. Maybe do a few blog posts. But kangaroo, I think it would be good, but I just don't know enough. I can't answer that question yet. I know it's a very lean meat. I assume it's healthy. I don't know if they're, I don't know. Katie Cox would actually be the person to ask because she's probably eaten lots of kangaroo in her travels. Thyroid, what do you find comes first? Is poor thyroid a function, a result of poor health, stress, body? It's both ways, 100%. Yes, I'll have to look up research. That's not my area at all. I always find hormonal topics really complicated. I mean, I know the gut's complicated in a way, but I think hormonal, we just don't know as much as we should know. And the research changes every 5 minutes. And if you're not in the thick of all the research, you're completely out of touch. So I'm definitely out of touch with that, with thyroid stuff. But the best person to ask would be to go into Kate Powell has a group, a women's hormone group, and ask the question in there because she's really an expert when it comes to hormones. She's amazing. And I think she's just, if anyone had histamine issues, I actually think she's just started a course, an online program for histamine intolerance. So thyroid's a bit of a tricky one. I think you need to go to someone who knows what they're talking about. You definitely don't go to a GP or any other sort of doctor unless they're an integrative practitioner. To get the right type of testing done and to get the right advice. And it needs to be looked at I think, in amongst all the other hormone and gut and other systems of the body rather than just isolated. And it needs to be treated that way as well because it's so closely related. If you look at, it governs digestion and gut health, and then it's also affected, like it goes both ways. So really important to not just, yes, you can deal with emotion and diet, but I think you sometimes also may need a little bit of help, supplements and potentially even medication if it's a severe condition. So let me know if there's any more questions. I can't remember if there's. Where are you getting your email? The emu oil from George Sands. Jerky kangaroo is a good idea because it's so. Not that I don't love the. When I do heart jerky, there's loads of fat, and the fat is the bit that I actually really like the most. But the oil, I think my mum bought it for me for something. I can't remember. She goes, "Oh, emu oil is good for that." I went, "Okay." And she bought it, and I just started using it on my skin because I ran out of moisture. I was like, "Oh, that's sitting there." And I was like, "Oh, I really like this." I don't know the brand, but I can find out. What oil do you use to make mayo? I think there's a recipe in the What to Eat book. I like 50% refined coconut oil because it just has no flavor. And I find that when you do 100% macadamia, the brand that I get's really strong and really nutty, and I just think it hijacks it, and it just feels really, it almost feels like heavier with just macadamia than it does if you break it up with coconut, even though that doesn't make much sense because it's more saturated. But half coconut without the odor and flavor, just the refined stuff, and then any combination of avocado, olive, or macadamia, whatever. I like a combination of two things there because just, it breaks up. It makes it not too overpowering. Olive oil is obviously really strong and avocado is quite mild. So that's what I use. And I wonder if Jan's waiting for me to contact him to say he can come home. It's all right. Does it go solid in the fridge? Yes, the mayo will thicken up. Doesn't go fully solid unless you've used more than 50% of the coconut oil. It does if you put ghee in there, then it goes really solid. But it just thickens. It goes nice and thick. And it means that you can probably use less oil and make it into more of a sauce. Normally with the mayo, you're watching it go thicker and thicker and thicker. But if you, Emu Tracks, who's under my name? Is that Jan or Mum? Somebody's watching. And if it's Jan, you can come back, because by the time you get back here, I'm sure we would have answered all the questions. So it thickens up in the fridge. So make it thinner than you think you need to. Like a normal mayo with vegetable oils, they're not going to thicken in the fridge. So if you make a mayo, it thickens and thickens, and you're like, right, that's time to stop the mayo with the vegetable oil, but just factoring that it will thicken up a lot because of the oils. They're more monounsaturated than a normal mayo. Who is that? Who's saying Emu Tracks? It must be Mum. Must be Mum listening. So, yeah. Anyway, ask me one more question. I don't think there was anything else I actually wanted to talk about, other than I haven't actually said anything about the coal mine events. They're going to be really good. We have one, if you just, in case you haven't, because social media is just, it doesn't show anything to anybody anymore. Shalani uses Emu Tracks as well. Yeah, no, it's a really nice, just got a nice vibe from the bottle. But I don't know anything about it. We are potentially, if we can find people to film for free, we're going to record them. There's no guarantee that we will. But hopefully we'll be able to do that. Potentially not the first one. We'll just see how we go. Keep searching for people who would volunteer that service. But the first one is Lee Holmes, Kate Johnston, Gillian from Cultured Artisans, Jane from Whole Food Family, and they're both doing samples of different ferments and handing around tastings and things like that. And I'll be talking about, the lifestyle things that we can do for gut health. Not that I'm completely over food, but I'll leave that to Lee. And then the second one is Jude Rowe, Alex Stewart, Holly Davis, Lisa Corduff, Brenda Yanchek, and I might say something, but probably won't have time. We got Holly Davis at the last minute, so it's kind of, I might just say maybe half an hour on Organ Eats, because it's about thriving kids, and I'd love to bring that into it to the audience. And then the last one is actually, even though the second one has like the big fancy lineup, the last one is, and most people will not know, or those speakers, that's going to be a killer event. I'm speaking, Shalani's speaking, and that's about, initially it was going to be sort of more about anxiety and depression in motherhood, the overwhelm, the kind of stress. But now it's about, like, we'll cover that, but it's really about how to embrace fun and be a bit more centered in everyday life. So how to create a happy home for children, but also just for yourself as a mother or a non-mother, a normal person, a normal sane person. But yeah, Shalani, myself, Sam Graham, who is just absolutely amazing. She's a mindfulness teacher and just does it in such an amazing way. And I've been to a workshop with her. She's just incredible. Just really like logical mindfulness, practical techniques that you can use that are not too airy-fairy. And she actually works with the Rabbitohs. She worked with the Rabbitohs the year that they won a few years ago. And they were sort of attributing it to that. And so she still works with them. And then Lizzie from 2 Minute Moves, who, if you haven't followed her YouTube channel, she's awesome, because, you get into that routine of like, can't be bothered to go to the gym, or so I can't do anything. And she's like, no, just pick up something and like pick up the books and just for 1 minute or 2 minutes is claim to fame, 2 Minute Moves, to just do something. And I can't help, she's so infectious and so happy. And it stemmed from she'll tell her story in the day through postnatal depression. She was literally like, she had to go to the doctor and they said, you need the medication. And she just thought, is there anything I can do before I do this? And she just got this kind of divine intervention, and through tears looked up and saw the word move, and she just started doing plies at the breakfast bar while her kids were watching TV. And then she felt like this sense of achievement and just went, wow, I've got something to look forward to tomorrow, just 2 minutes of just doing something. And she's just completely infectious. So I would, if you're a mum and you're at home and you hate doing exercise or you don't get around to it as often as you should, follow her, because she does 2-minute moves wherever she goes, and it's always in newsfeed, which is really cool. Is that all? That's all the speakers. But they're all amazing speakers. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Hang on 2 seconds. I have to text you. I have to just tell Jan, okay? Because otherwise he's going to he's up at the other house. Hang on 2 seconds. And I'll just let him know that he can come home, because he'll just stay there until I message him. And then Archie will be so tired. What else? Any in Melbourne? No, unfortunately not. It's just because it's a local, this is just a spur of the moment random idea of mine that just has been quite time consuming for the last 3 months. I don't know. Sometimes I just go, yeah, I can do it. And then I'm like, the hell did I do that for? It's been quite, exhausting. But it's been really amazing because the community has just sort of come together. But the whole point of it is to raise awareness in this area in the Central Coast, because it's fastest growing region in the entire state. It used to be the country. I think there's one more now. It's like second in the country. And all these families moving up from Sydney, they can't afford Sydney anymore. They want to move out and have a nice life, a healthy life. And they move to the coast, the really undeveloped area, and have no idea what they're moving into, and they have no idea about the issue. So for me, it was about, because I was going out to mothers groups and things, and people were like, oh, what coal mine? And they have no idea. So for me, that was the biggest thing that I wanted to achieve, was like telling people, like, do you actually know what's about to happen? And they're planning to, they're putting coal loaders right near schools and preschools and hospitals and aged care facilities, which are just going to be churning out coal dust 24/7 for the next 28 years. And that's just one issue. Our house could potentially sink 2 meters. It could break in half. And then we actually have to spend years and years in court trying to get, the money from the coal company. Like, that's our life gone. So, and there's all of the farmers in the valleys, these picturesque, beautiful valleys are all going to sink by 2 meters. And there's big cracks in the land, and roads just crack, and there's all these, because it's undermining. That's where that phrase came from. And all the creeks dry up. This is a water catchment area that supplies 300,000 people, the whole of the Central Coast region. That water's all going to go. And they're like, don't worry, we've got a plan. The plan is to treat the mine wastewater and feed that to the community. Hard not to get a bit ranty, sorry. I'll just keep ranting until Jan comes home. But it's just horrifying to think that it can happen it was rejected for 22 years. And in 2018, the year that coal is absolutely on the way out, the year that they're announcing, there's going to be no petrol cars produced in another year or two. Like, they're all going to renewables. And that's when we want to approve a coal mine. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So the only way you can fight these things is to have people informed. And unfortunately, all of the people who've been fighting this for 22 years are all really old now. So I went to all of the rallies, and there's like silver hair everywhere, and there's no young people, and no one cares. They're all jaded. They're just, just complacent, I guess. And I thought we need to get someone to sort of inform the mothers, because if the mothers care, they're going to start talking on social media. And there's nothing on social media about this, really. Like, there's a few newspaper articles. Can you do a Facebook Live about the coal mine? Yes, I'm going to. I'm going to do what is the nearest airport? I don't know. Newcastle, probably. There's one at Newcastle, I'm sure. So I am quite a little bit passionate about this. I'm going to do 3 Facebook Lives. So I'm going to do one with Kate Johnston in the next 2 weeks. Gillian, Jane, did I just say the same name twice? No, I didn't. And Shannon from Full Circle Farm. So, Shannon, so you can hear what the effect on their property will be, because their land's going to sink. What they do, if you're in the zone of being affected by the mine, what they do is like, cool, we're mining under George's house next week. So what they do, and I've watched other documentaries in other countries from the United States, other states over there, they come and they dig through your lawn, and they dig a massive trench, and they put scaffolding around your house, and they might cut down a few things in your house and do things and lift this up and ruin things. And that is apparently worse than anything else, because it's like months of having your place torn to shreds out of precautionary measures, so that your house isn't split in two because you've got 2 massive, craters being dug either side of the house that you then have to just, so it's like there's all of this, and what happens is that they put legislation in there to protect the community and protect the land and the water and everything, and then the mining company just goes back to the government and goes, oh, this is annoying, can you just change that? Like, yep, cool, we'll change it. So it can all be there in the beginning. And what's routinely shown over and over and over and over again is that legislation actually means nothing when it comes to the mining company putting a bit more pressure and they get what they want. And then they don't, and then they just let the mine, they don't have to do any of the environmental cleanup that they say they're going to do. And then they just sell the mine for $1 and it's not their fault anymore. They don't have to do anything. So everything that they claim, and there are people on the coast who really want it to go ahead because they think there's going to be lots of jobs, which there's not, because they bring people in from out of town to do it. Yes, you can definitely donate without attending. I'll put a link to the Chuffed campaign. If you just search for Wallarah2, WALLARAH2, number 2, on chuffed.org or .com, you'll find it. Or even just go to Stirring Change. The Mindful Mama events are there. There's a link on that page as well. But it's pretty horrifying. And if no one knows about it, we can't really protest. But I think, so the Australian Coal Alliance are actually taking the government. And there's no way, this is a corrupt deal that's happening with this mine. There's no way, like you can't, all the science is there. They've been collecting this science for 22 years. What's happened is because someone in government probably has said, don't worry, you'll get your mine. Just sit there, you'll get your mine, don't worry, we'll approve it. They haven't, and it's a done deal, we think, theoretically, that they've been really sloppy with all their paperwork. And so they're supposed to dig this many things to test the water, and and 100 times they've got to test that, and they haven't done it, and they haven't done this, and they haven't done that. So they're just, they've got all the documentation to show they haven't done anything correctly, and there's overwhelming independent science and reports they've been collected for that long. So they're taking them to the Land Environment Court, and that's what the money's for. The money that we're raising will pay the legal fees, which is something like $300,000. Initially, they said, oh, look, 100,000 to give you a ballpark figure. It's probably closer to 300,000. I thought I was doing a really good job by raising 40. It's probably not going to scratch the surface. That's it. We are all affected by everything. It's really true. And I think I'm almost a little bit ashamed of myself for being a bit cynical. Well, just a bit like scrolling past. Like I definitely was sort of brought into the Adani cause because they had such big media and such big exposure on social media. But I didn't, you sort of just get jaded and cynical because there's so many mines and there's so much fracking and there's just so many causes. And now that it affects me, I'm like really, really vocal. And I wish I had been interested, like marching and talking to other people. I just wish I had been more interested. I was really bothered by the Liverpool Plains one when they were fracking all of the farming, like the best farming land in New South Wales, around Sydney. So I think it does affect us because it affects our farmers. And what will start to happen, I mean, it just drives me a bit mental that across the board, the noose is tightening around every industry that keeps us healthy, like every possibility. Do you know what I mean? Like if you know about the small scale farmers in Victoria, like everything's getting shut down. The red tape is like closing around them so that they can't operate anymore. And it feels like it's happening across the board. It feels like it's just going completely nuts. Like government's like, screw everyone. Let's just go money grab. It just feels completely bizarre to me. Anyway, but I didn't know that much about politics or how to get involved other than to do what I already do, which is kind of like health and wellness. I'm like, how can we do something? What can I do? And so it really is, if you tune into people like Costa and Tammy Jonas and these people who are working 24/7 on their causes, whatever their cause is, it's like they're just so inspiring. There's so much energy that comes from just going, I mean, you have to have that. We haven't been living on a shoestring because I haven't really brought, aside from what to eat, I'm not doing any other work. And so how do you not let it all overwhelm you? That's exactly it. You follow people who are, yes, we do. That's it. Exactly what Shalana just said. We have the most global activism right now than we've ever had. We have more technology, we have more tools, we have more awareness. People are waking up. So it's a constant battle between good and evil. It's a constant battle between letting yourself get pulled into that frozen state and going, I can't, like, what do we do? Throw our hands up. You just can't go there. And so people like Costa and Tammy, like if you run into them or if you look at their schedule, Costa does his filming for TV. Every other thing that he does, he's speaking at this rally, he's speaking at that, he's filmed for this, he's filmed for that. Everything he does is for free. Everything, he's like flitting. Every time I've interviewed him or talked to him, he's flitting. Oh, I've got to go to Melbourne. I've got to get on my plane. Sorry, I've got to rush because I've got to get on a plane. And he's on the plane to go and speak at the Royal Milk Rally. Then he's coming back to, and that's all he does. Aside from his job, that's all he does is activism of one kind or another. And same with Tammy. She's overseas for the Slow Food Convention. Then she's overseas to be on this panel. Then she's here doing this. Then she's like getting the government involved in protecting the rights of small farmers and trying to change the legislation. And you just think, I saw him on Hugh's TV show the other day by chance, awesome guy. He's very hard to ignore. It's these people who are just radiating like, we can do this. It's not time to be pessimistic. And if you are, which you get, there's moments, because how can you not have those moments where you're like, oh, everything, excuse my French. Then you have to pull yourself back and go, no, I'm not going to give in to that. We have to all keep trying because we will win eventually. Because truth and light always wins at the end. You've watched the movies, it's true. So, oh yeah, I didn't know what you meant when you said Hughes. Dave Hughes. I thought you meant Hugh Burnley Withensell. Yes, so I think it's time for everyone. This is a good note to go out on. I would love you to be activists, to do more, to shop directly with your farmer, to support the businesses, to consciously support, do Alex's Low Tox Life course and learn about where everything comes from, your clothes, your this, your that, and do one thing at a time, really. But then it's about telling other people, and actually doing something and joining with other people. I didn't think I could do anything about the coal mine. Like, what skills do I have? What knowledge do I have? Absolutely nothing. But what can you do, and how can you use your skills with somebody else? Maybe it's just pairing up. Like, I don't have the skills to put big events on. Hopefully the events will be good. I think they will. But just inviting all of the people that I get stuck feeling like I'm copying others. Yeah, but we just need to work as a community. We just need to bond together and work as a community again, and with the same goal. Everyone says low fox. It's an autocorrect. I wrote to Alex the other day. And it's like low fox, low tox. So I'm getting distracted with the comments. Yes. So it's about joining communities like this one where we can all. It's not copying, it's joining forces. I agree with you, Shalani. That's what it is. All bringing our strengths and our talents together. And who cares if you're copying, if you're changing the world? It doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. Time to go. Okay. Good night, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Things are great here. Bye.